Welcome to my 2024-2025 NFL predictions, where I'll be predicting each division from top to bottom, give my award winner picks, my potential dark horses, and of course my Super Bowl champion. Get ready to be triggered because you don't like where I have your favorite team in the standings. Starting with the NFC South in last place, I of course have the Carolina Panthers. I mean, the Panthers should be much better than what they were last year, but honestly, that doesn't mean too much. I mean, the wide receiver core should be much better with the additions of Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette. Like, as bad as Bryce was last year, his wide receivers didn't really help him out. Like, I still think they'll be relatively bad, but better than last year. Like, Bryce is gonna have to take the biggest step forward we've ever seen for this team to have any competitive chance. In third, I have the Saints. Now, given the Saints cap situation of the past 5+ seasons, they really couldn't afford much this offseason. They did add Chase Young, which is gonna be interesting injecting him into that front seven, so the defense could give teams problems. But unfortunately, the wide receiver room outside of Chris Olave scares me deeply. Like, one Rashid Shaheed or A.T. Perry's gonna have to step up massively, or that wide receiver room's gonna be a dud. I don't know about their running game either, dude. Like, Alvin Kamara has never once in his career ran for over 1,000 yards. So, like, with Derek Carr at the helm, like, I just don't know about their offense. Like, it's just gonna be a mediocre season for the Saints. Now, as the NFC South runner-ups, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The team is almost identical to what they put out there last season, which isn't really a bad thing at all. Like, they were pretty good last year. They were able to lock down Mike Evans to a pretty team-friendly deal, so I'm sure Bucs fans are happy about that. They also locked down Antoine Winfield, which is a massive move for the present and the future. Now, if Baker and Rachaad White can produce at the same levels as they did a year ago, like, this offense should still score a ton of points. But outside of a few players, I am kind of really worried about their secondary depth. They should still fight for a wild card spot this season. And officially winning the NFC South, I have the Atlanta Falcons. If Kirk Cousins is actually 100%, I feel like he's going to be a monumental addition for this organization. I wonder if finally we'll have Drake London and Kyle Pitts both break out. Like, I think there's a good chance they do. Now, the one bad thing I have to say is I'm sure Falcons fans would much prefer to have Rome Odunze at wide receiver opposite of Drake London than Michael Penix. But defensively, this is a team that has one of the best secondaries, in my opinion, in the entire league. Not to mention they finally added some resemblance of a pass rush as they traded for Matthew Judon. So I think this is the season things finally come together and the Falcons win the division. Now, moving along right into the NFC West, and dead last, I have the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I do think the Cardinals will be much improved from 2023. Kyler's healthy, and he actually has a #1 receiver, Marvin Harrison, to throw to. Also, I really like Michael Wilson. Like, I think he's a guy that can get 800, 900 yards a year. I feel like James Conner is one of the most underrated, productive backs in the league. But unfortunately for Kyler in the offense, I feel like the line is just too much of a liability currently. The tackles, they're both former first-round picks, so they really haven't produced too much yet. And also, the defense is, like, very iffy from top to bottom. Like, there's really no stars to be seen, especially when you consider how high-scoring this entire division is. It'll be a better 2024 season, but I think 2025 could be the year for the Cardinals. Give them one more offseason. Now, coming in third, we have the Seattle Seahawks. Now, entering the Mike McDonald era is just weird to me. Like, I'm so used to Pete Carroll being on that sideline, so it's going to be interesting to see how the Seattle Seahawks work outside of Carroll, because, like, no matter how good or bad their team's been, they've always been competitive. I mean, Geno's still solid. They got a great wide receiver duo. Kenneth Walker has all the potential to be a top 10 back. I do like their pick of Byron Murphy, who I think is going to anchor that defensive line, but they have quite a few pieces they have to replace defensively, such as Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner, who I feel like has been there for, what, a decade now? I mean, even in third place, I think the Seahawks are a solid 8, maybe 9 win team, but I think the other two teams in the division are a little bit too far ahead of them right now. Which means in second place, I have the LA Rams. Now, the biggest question is, will the combination of the two rookies, Braden Fisk and Jared Verse, be able to somewhat replace the production of Aaron Donald? I mean, that's like a crazy thing to say when you consider the fact that Aaron Donald's arguably the best defensive player in NFL history. But outside of that, I think they made some great additions on their defense. Like, they brought in some veterans in that secondary like Tre'Davious White, Cameron Curl. They beefed up the offensive line quite a bit with the addition of Jonah Jackson from Detroit. Now, if Cooper Kupp is really back to 100%, which is the rumor out there, you pair him with the second-year Puka Nacua, who should be better, this offense could honestly be deadly, which there's definitely potential for the Rams to win the division, but right now I think the 49ers are still the team to beat. Now, disclaimer, at the time I'm recording this, I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen with the Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams situation. Like, they both could still be a Niner come week 1, or they both could be like traded elsewhere. I mean, obviously that would scare anybody, but like even theoretically, if they lost both of them, which I don't think they will, I still think they win the division. Now, even if Trent Williams does suit up week 1, the offensive line's pretty freaking iffy. And if they lose arguably the best left tackle in the league, like, yeah, it might be a little bit of a dumpster fire, but obviously I think they have enough weapons to make up for it. They're also replacing a lot of talent up front. Like, there's a lot of new faces on this 49er defense, but I still think they just have way too much talent to not come in first place. But the Rams are knocking, though. I think the gap's a little bit smaller than what it was last season. That takes us to the NFC East, where I have the Washington Commanders coming in dead last. I mean, they got a rookie QB in Jaden Daniels, brand new head coach in Dan Quinn, and I'm not gonna lie, I really don't know how I feel about the fit Dan Quinn with the rookie quarterback. Like, something in the back of my head's telling me it's the opposite of a match made in heaven. Like, I really do feel like they could have done so much better with the coaching search, but they have who they have. If this team is going to exceed expectations, Jaden Daniels is gonna have to have a rookie of the year season. That's the only possible way. Like, the offensive line outside of maybe Sam Cosmi is pretty terrible. They did make quite a few defensive free agent moves. They brought in Clelin Ferrell, Bobby Wagner, and Jeremy Chin, but honestly, those moves in 2024 really don't move the needle for me. And in my opinion, not even the addition of Austin Eckler can keep this team out of last place. Now, in third place, I have the New York Giants. This literally all depends on whether or not Daniel Jones is still terrible. If he is terrible, this easily could turn into last place. Now, Malik Neighbors will be by far the best receiver Daniel Jones has ever had. Will the loss in production from Saquon Barkley to Devin Singletary cancel that out? Now, I do love the bargain signings they made to help out the offensive line, because if they can't protect Daniel Jones, this team has no chance of winning more than like 3 or 4 games. Now, defensively, will a D-line of Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence be enough to carry a defense that has a pretty stinky secondary? Now, second place in the NFC East is a tough one, but I landed on the Dallas Cowboys here. Like, in all honesty, what the frick are they doing? At this point in time, they haven't given Dak a contract extension, they haven't given CD a contract extension, and CD is not happy about it. And on top of that, they trust grandfather Ezekiel Elliott with the running game. It's either gonna be him or Rico Dowdle, which is crazy to me because it basically came out that Derrick Henry wanted to go to Dallas. So, like, why not give Derrick Henry $8-9 million a year? I mean, outside of that, the team's still gonna be fine with their offensive weapons, especially if Jalen Tolbert can take a big step forward. I mean, yeah, I have them in second, but they're still probably gonna make the playoffs. They're gonna grab a wild card spot. But with the offseason they've had, I just really think the Eagles are the better team right now. I really think that Saquon move is gonna end up being massive, dude. Like, he might end up running for 1,500 yards this season. Like, that offensive line is great. Saquon behind it's a cheat code. Like, even without Saquon, we knew the offense was still gonna be good. It was the defense that had all the question marks, and I think they made some incredible moves this offseason. Like, Howie was cooking. Like, the additions of CJ Gardner-Johnson, Quinyon Mitchell, and Cooper DeJean should be huge in helping a secondary, which was really the only reason they didn't win the division last season. Which takes us to the daunting NFC North. Unfortunately, beginning things in last place, I have the Minnesota Vikings. I honestly feel kind of bad for him, dude. Last year, they lost Kirk Cousins to a season-long injury, lost him in free agency. Now they lost their new rookie quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, to a knee meniscus tear. Not to mention, we don't know when T.J. Hawkinson is going to be back, and even when he comes back, when's he going to be 100%? Like, obviously, I love their skill guys, and the addition of Aaron Jones is going to be interesting, but with Sam Darnold starting at quarterback, dude, in one of the NFL's toughest divisions, like, I just have to put them in last, which moves us into third place. And let me tell you, this was a tough one, but I do have the Chicago Bears. And like I said, this was tough, dude, because probably in any other division, I would predict the Bears to come in second, but this NFC North is just crazy. Like, even with this arguably being the toughest division in football, on paper, this team possibly could win the division. Like, there's just so many new faces, though, that, like, I just have to physically see it come into place first. Now, if Caleb Williams does come out year one playing up to his full potential, like, we could see this team go crazy, especially having arguably the best group of skill position players in the entire division. Not to mention their defense has potential to be great too. So don't hate me too much, Bears fans, because there's really not many weaknesses in your team. Like, you could very easily win the division. I just have to see it to believe it, unfortunately. Which takes us into second, and it's another tough one, but again, I have the summer months are truly upon us, which means the NFL season's right around the corner. And you best believe I'm gonna be making my way to Nashville for a few Titans games this year, which is exactly why why I gotta tell you about my special hookup with today's sponsor, SeatGeek. You can use my code RBT10 to get 10% off any tickets at SeatGeek, whether you're a new SeatGeek customer or a SeatGeek veteran. Sports, concerts, festivals, you name it. And I think you guys know by now that I absolutely love working with SeatGeek because, as you can see, I've used SeatGeek for every single sporting event I've attended since 2019. SeatGeek's super simple to use and understand. They literally rate every single ticket available on a scale from 1 to 10. When you're searching for your tickets, look for the green dot, because green dots mean good, red dots mean bad. So no matter how many times you've used SeatGeek, code RBT10 is going to get you 10% off your next order. So go ahead and take out that cellular device of yours, open up the SeatGeek app, and add code RBT10 to your account. And make sure you go ahead and take advantage because this offer is only available for a limited time. Which takes us into second, and it's another tough one, but again, I have the Green Bay Packers. The only question mark I have on this entire team is the offensive line. It's actually very iffy, but even if the offensive line is just okay and not bad, and if Jordan Love can play like he did in the second half of last season all year this year, I really feel like they'll contend for a Super Bowl. Like, if Josh Jacobs could return to his 2022 form, like, this offense has the potential to be the best group in the league. I mean, not to mention, like, so many young guys that are starters return, they should be even better this year. Like, the defense too, like, the biggest question mark was the secondary, and they freaking signed Xavier McKinney, and not to mention they also drafted Javon Bullard. So that secondary should be a-okay, and like, I know I have them in second place here, but that doesn't mean I don't think they're going to be a Super Bowl contender. Which obviously means I have the Lions in first. The majority of the team stayed intact, which is a good thing considering they almost and probably should have made the Super Bowl. They addressed their main weakness in the entire team being the secondary by drafting Terrion Arnold and picking up Carlton Davis. Not to mention adding DJ Reader and Marcus Davenport to this defensive line with Aiden Hutchinson. If they're young guys, Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Laporta, Jack Campbell can take a step forward, this team will once again compete for a Super Bowl. Which finally takes us into the AFC, starting with the AFC South, and coming in last place, I have my Tennessee Titans. Just kidding, I have the Colts. Call me crazy, I understand it if you do, but I still don't trust Anthony Richardson. Like, he's gonna have to put an entire quality year together before I really do become a believer. Like, I understand the upside, but like, I gotta see it. I mean, we saw it for like a 2-3 game stretch potentially last year, but I need more than that. And not to mention, I mean, he's coming off a pretty serious shoulder injury too, so like, will he be able to throw the ball 100%? Not to mention, they didn't do too much outside of drafting Adonai Mitchell to really help him out offensively. And even though it's not a bad group by any stretch of the imagination, I still think their wide receiver room is probably the worst in the entire division. And that secondary, my god, dude, it honestly might be the worst unit in the entirety of the NFL. Like, how did Chris Ballard not add anybody in the secondary? Like, Chris Ballard needs to be sanctioned by the US government for not adding a single quality DB. Takes us into third place, which is finally where I have my Tennessee Titans. Just kidding, it's the Jags. Again, call me a hater, but Trevor Lawrence still doesn't convince me. And I have no idea how Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas is going to work out in that offense. Again, call me a hater, but like, I honestly think Brian Thomas was one of the most, if not the most, overrated receiver in last year's draft. Now, admittedly, and probably by far, they have the best pass rush in the entire division, but that secondary, brother, it's stinky. And in second place, I have the Houston Texans. Just kidding, this is actually where I have the Titans. I am so tired of the disrespect, dude. We have one of the best off seasons in the entirety of the NFL. Like, I know we weren't good last year, but we added so much to all of our positions of weakness. Calvin Ridley, L'Jarius Sneed, just to name a few. Like, over the last 2 seasons, we've had one of the league's worst wide receiver and DB rooms, and they both got drastically improved in the offseason. Our wide receiver core of DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, Traylon Burks, honestly, it might be the best group we've had in franchise history. And I'm so tired of the Will Levis disrespect. I don't think people understand how historically terrible our offensive line was last year. And with new head coach Brian Callahan, did you not see the numbers Jake Browning put up in his offense? Will Levis has more talent in his left bicep than Jake Browning has in his entire body. If this this team can stay healthy, we're not doing any worse than second place. But of course, I have the Texans at 1, because with everything they have coming back, dude, they're just way too good. Not to mention the additions of guys like Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon, Danielle Hunter, and more. Like, imagine last year's Texans team with a good run offense and a better defense. Yeah, brother, that, my friends, is a Super Bowl contender. Hence why I put them in first place in the division, which officially takes our prediction journey into the AFC West. And in last place, wasn't any doubt that I was going to have the Broncos here, but they're still a million miles away from competing in a division that has the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, I do feel like Bo Nix is going to struggle quite a bit in his rookie season, but that doesn't mean I don't think he'll turn into at least a solid starter. Improvement, but I still think a team that's at minimum 2 years away from competing. Third place, we got the Raiders. Team starting fresh with a brand new identity and head coach Antonio Pierce, which I guess is not necessarily brand new because he was the interim coach last year, but new in the sense that he had a full offseason to himself finally, where he could mold the team as much as possible in his identity. But even with the defense that has Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins on the same defensive line, and a team that has decent weapons, you know, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, now Brock Bowers, who I think is going to be an all-pro eventually, I just don't think a team with a quarterback, running back duo of Gardner Minshew and Zamir White can really compete in a division with the Chargers and Chiefs, which obviously means in second place I have the Chargers. I have to say, the Chargers are going to be one of the most interesting teams in the entirety of the NFL. Under new head coach Jim Harbaugh, they are going to run the football a lot, which is weird knowing they have Justin Herbert at quarterback, but their best weapons are Ladd McConkey and Josh Palmer, so like that shows you why they're going to run the ball so much. But not to mention, they have probably easily the best offensive line in the entire division. So even though they don't have the most talented running back room, like I still think they're going to find success on the ground. And you can't talk about the Chargers without mentioning their defense that has arguably the best 1-2 pass rush combo in the league with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. This old school football that Jim Harbaugh is going to bring to the table is going to be interesting, and I think it should lead to a second place finish in this division. But if some reason the run game is a lot worse than anticipated, this team could be in trouble. And like, is it any surprise I had the Chiefs won? What's scary though is that this might actually be the most talented Chiefs team that Patrick Mahomes has ever been on. They've won back-to-back Super Bowls. It's probably the deepest group of pass catchers that Patrick Mahomes has ever had, and he's like won the Super Bowl with like a horrible room. The only question mark for me on this entire team is that secondary after losing L'Jarius Sneed. Like, you can't lose arguably the best corner in the league and just think it's not going to have any effect. But in all honesty, like, the Chiefs defense might not even need to take the field, and they probably would still win every game. Now this continues our journey into the AFC East, where in last place, no surprise, I have the Patriots. No matter if it's Jacoby Brissett or Drake May that ends up starting at quarterback to begin the year, like, they're just not competing in this tough division with the wide receiver room they had. And not to mention, they just lost Matthew Judon, so like, where's the pass rush gonna come from? Like, this team is just kind of a total mess right now, but you give Gerard Mayo another year or two and he'll sort it out. Now in third place, probably the biggest shocker of the video up to this point, yes, I have the Buffalo Bills. I know this sounds absolutely insane, so just hear me out. And also I want to say, even if the Bills do come in third place, I think they win enough games to compete for a wild card spot. Like, no doubts about it, this team is Josh Allen, and that's about it. But like I said, he's so good that alone, I think he can still compete for a wild card spot. Easily, this is the worst wide receiver room Josh Allen has ever had. And we've seen in the past, Josh Allen and this offense struggle when their wide receivers do. Khalil Shakir is going to have a massive breakout season for this team to have a chance at competing for first place in this super tough division. Also, Keon Coleman's going to have to hit the ground running too. And the defense too, but like league standard, is like very average. And when you consider they lost their veteran safety duo of Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, who have been there for what seems like forever, like that secondary is maybe the biggest question mark in this entire division. Now in second place in this tough division, I have the Miami Dolphins. Now we already know that offense will be great once again if everybody stays healthy, but how will the defense be with the loss of Christian Wilkins? Not to mention their best two pass rushers, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, are both coming off of pretty catastrophic season-ending injuries. So we really have no idea when they're going to both be back at 100%. But if they can both get back to form ASAP, I do think the Dolphins pretty comfortably get themselves a wild card spot, which leads us to the Jets finally winning the division. I tried this prediction last year, but didn't really anticipate Aaron Rodgers snapping his Achilles in half before he completed a singular pass. But with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, I'm still still a believer, especially when you consider I think this is going to be a pretty big down year for the Bills. Rightfully so, they did invest in that offensive line to protect their most valuable asset in Rodgers. I think signing Tyron Smith and drafting Olu Fashanu is going to turn out to be huge. Not to mention now a super solid wide receiver room. You also got to mention they got themselves a pretty decent running back. I think we all can agree on the fact their defense is pretty easily going to be the best defense in the division. So if they can get just 70% of prime Aaron Rodgers, I am confident they win this division. Which brings us into what I believe is the toughest division in all of football, the AFC North, where I have the Cleveland Browns coming in dead last. Now I know they somehow won 11 games last year, but again, hear me out please. I just don't trust Deshaun Watson for a myriad of reasons. Now I don't know about the offense, especially not knowing how long Nick Chubb is going to be out, and even when he comes back, how long is it going to take for him to be 100%? Like, he might not even be 100% this entire season. Like, regardless of Deshaun Watson though, this is just like a really tough one because they still are a really good team. I mean, they have super solid pass catchers, they have a pretty incredible offensive line, and you can make a good argument that they have the best defense in this division by a pretty large margin. But as mentioned, dude, like, I really feel like from top to bottom, this is by far the deepest division in football, which puts the Pittsburgh Steelers in third. Now, even a washed version of Russell Wilson should be a pretty massive upgrade from whatever the heck the Steelers had last year. The problem is with like the loss of Deontay Johnson, their wide receiver room is pretty bad. But keep in mind, dude, outside of Deontay Johnson, this is the same team that won 10 games a year ago with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph at quarterback. That defense is so good, dude, not to mention they added Patrick Queen and Dante Jackson to it. So they could overtake the Browns as the best defense in the division. So even though I do have them finishing in third place, if Russell Wilson is just average, I still see them fighting for a wild card spot here. Now in second place, and this is probably my toughest prediction of the entire day, but I do have the Cincinnati Bengals. If Joe Burrow is 100%, this team is 100% without a doubt in my mind making the playoffs one way or another. And we'll have to see if somebody can step up for that wide receiver 3 spot now that Tyler Boyd is a Tennessee Titan. Not to mention they lost Joe Mixon, who I honestly think is one of the most underrated players in the NFL of the past decade. Like, what are the odds Zach Moss and Chase Brown could really replace that production? Not to mention they also lost Chidobe Awuzie in that secondary again to my Tennessee Titans. But maybe the addition of Geno Stone kind of cancels out that lost production in the secondary. I mean, it's tough because honestly, I might have the Bengals winning any other division. But I don't have them beating out the Ravens though. You add Derrick Henry to an offense with Lamar Jackson. That should be outlawed by the World Economic Forum. Like, think what Gus Edwards did in that offense, but on anabolic steroids. They did lose Kevin Zeitler off the offensive line, also lost Patrick Queen and Geno Stone off the defense. But if this team, Lamar Jackson especially, can stay healthy, which has proven sometimes to be a big if, this team should once again come out on top in the NFL's toughest division. Which now moves us into some of our individual accolades, starting with the comeback player of the year. And I think this is by far my easiest prediction of the day. We have Aaron Rodgers winning it. Like, if Aaron Rodgers comes back and puts up the numbers we know he's capable of after that devastating injury a year ago, like, this award is wraps. Now we move on to Rookie of the Year, and offensively, another one that's so simple, dude, Caleb Williams. Like, I hate taking the obvious route. I like to add in some spice here and there, but like, Caleb Williams is going to win this award if he just has a decent season. Like, the offense he has around him, it's just set up too well for him to not succeed. Like, he's already looked above and beyond the other quarterbacks in the preseason. Like, the only other player I think that could challenge him is maybe Marvin Harrison if he goes for like 1,000+ yards, but this is normally a quarterback award, and Caleb Williams with that height, I think he wins it quite easily. Now, talking about adding spice, dude, the defensive Rookie of the Year. Like, I could have possibly gone Dallas Turner here, but just hear me out. Give me this one, and you know what? If he doesn't win Defensive Rookie of the Year, since I haven't put any stakes in this video, I'll gladly, once we do our video at the end of the season where we react to these predictions, I'll put up $200 to charity. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I have T'Vondre Sweat. New Tennessee Titans defensive tackle. He's a plug-and-field player. He's been incredible in training camp. It's a perfect opportunity alongside Jeff Simmons. Like, I don't know if he's going to put up insane numbers. Like, I don't know if any rookie defensive players are going to put up crazy numbers, which is exactly why I do think this is a perfect opportunity for a guy like T'Vondre Sweat to come out of nowhere and win this award. That's a crazy one, I know, but I'm sticking to my freaking guns. Now, before I give you my MVP pick and my conference champions, I want to give you a few dark horse teams that could come out of nowhere to shock some people. Now, first, I think it's an obvious one, the Chicago Bears. Already mentioned, it kind of hurt putting them in third place in the NFC North. That division is just too good, but they just have so much talent. Like I said, it's very possible they can put everything together, go out and even win that division. Next, now this is a wild one, but I do have the Arizona Cardinals. Like, their defense is such a question mark, but I think there is a world where Kyler, Marvin Harrison, not to mention James Conner, just go the frick off. I'm not even mentioning Trey McBride. He has a chance to be a top 3 tight end in the league. There's a world that they score so many points that they win 10 games and make the playoffs. Like, if that defense can just be mediocre, I think they have a shot to shock some people. My third dark horse team, which is kind of a weird dark horse, I have the Rams. And the reason I have them as a dark horse, even though I have them in second place, is like they're a team that I honestly think could win 14 games, which is crazy considering the fact they just lost Aaron freaking Donald. And not to mention Kyron Williams coming back healthy, and they got Blake Corum behind them. Like, this offense could be crazy. In the defense, yeah, they lost Donald, but if the young rookies produce a little bit and that much improved secondary balls out, they could pretty easily take the division from the Niners, which is a pretty big task considering they almost won the Super Bowl last year. Final dark horse, before we get to our MVP pick, I have the Raiders. They're an interesting one because I feel like they're going to run the ball so much, but like they have good weapons. Like, let Gardner Minshew sling that pigskin. I gave him some crap earlier, but I don't know why, because like every time I've ever watched Gardner Minshew play, like, he's been a solid NFL quarterback. Like, if they can distribute the ball to their weapons and the Devontae Adams, the Brock Bowers, and Jacoby Myers, like, if they just let their defense ball out, they control games, like, they could win 9 teams, shock some people, and maybe squeeze out a wild card berth. Now, before I reveal my conference champions, we have to go with our NFL MVP. Is it Patrick Mahomes? Is it Matthew Stafford? Is it Josh Allen? Joe Burrow? No, we have CJ Stroud. Like, you just take the season he had last year, brother. You add Stephon Diggs to the equation, a healthy Tank Dell, a little bit improved offensive line. Like, I think this team is going to win so many games, and I think CJ Stroud is going to put up crazy numbers. Like, I don't think this is way too far-fetched, with the fact, as a Titans fan who has a very strong dislike of the Texans, is predicting CJ Stroud to win the MVP. Like, that should tell you something. Now, getting down to the nitty-gritty, brother, our first conference champion in the NFC. Call me crazy, but for the second year in a row, I have the Detroit Lions. I got so close last year, brother. Everybody called me insane for picking the Lions to win the NFC, and honestly, they should have. I think we all can agree on that. But what really screwed the Lions? Their secondary was awful. They added CJ Gardner-Johnson, Terrion Arnold, who I thought was a steal late in the first round, Carlton Davis, who was kind of had a down year last year, but I don't know, he should be improved this year. The only weakness on the team, vastly improved. They came up short last year, but I think the Lions finally get it done in 2024 and head to a Super Bowl. Now, AFC champions, is it going to be the Chiefs for the 3rd consecutive year? Is CJ Stroud and the Texans going to get it done? Is Aaron Rodgers going to go all the way? And my answer is boring. I think it's the Chiefs again. I hate it, dude. I really do. Like, I don't want the Chiefs to win. Like, I don't like the Chiefs. But they've won the freaking Super Bowl the last 2 years, dude. And they got even better this offseason. Like, how can I not predict them to win the AFC Championship? And that brings us to our Super Bowl. Detroit Lions, Kansas City Chiefs. Can Detroit finally get it done? No. Unfortunately, brother, I really do wholeheartedly think the Chiefs win back-to-back Super Bowls. Like, I'm not gonna pick the favorite. I'm gonna go a little off the grid, but I just can't pick against the Chiefs, dude. This is the best team Patrick Mahomes has ever been on. As much as I hate it, dude, I think the Swifties are gonna be happy again. Now, hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Let me know what you think about my predictions in the comment section below, and also let me know what your predictions are. And while you're here, you can click right here to watch another absolute banger on the channel. Also, do make sure to subscribe. Everybody watching this video, subscribe tonight. We could hit 500 million subs. Let's go. Let's pass Mr. Beast.